3 babies,
Impossible!
1 woman,
I'm infertile!
0
Nothing can
answers.
come here with my baby!
She walked into the most dangerous building in Seoul, carrying children that shouldn't exist. Because the man who owned that building, he was medically incapable of having kids. Every doctor said so. Every test confirmed it. So when Choi Min-jae, the most feared mafia boss in South Korea, saw those 3 identical faces staring back at him, he didn't ask who she was. He asked one question: who's trying to kill me? Rain hammered the concrete outside Min-jae's compound. Security cameras caught her the moment she stepped through the gate. A black girl in her 20s, soaked to the bone, clutching 3 infants wrapped in blankets that were too thin for the weather. She didn't run, didn't hide, just walked straight toward the main entrance like she had an appointment with death. The guards moved fast, guns drawn, red dots dancing across her chest. But she didn't stop, didn't even flinch, just kept walking. One of the guards shouted in Korean. She didn't respond. Another stepped forward, rifle raised. Still nothing. She just stood there in the rain, water streaming down her face, and said 5 words in perfect English. I need to see him. Inside the compound, Min-jae was in a meeting, the kind where men in expensive suits discuss things that would make civilians lose sleep for months. Money laundering routes, territorial disputes. Who needed to disappear next? His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. He glanced at the screen. His head of security. He never interrupted meetings unless someone was dying. Min-jae answered without a word. Sir, we have a situation at the front gate. Min-jae's voice was calm. Too calm. Handle it. Sir, she's asking for you specifically, and she has children with her. The room went quiet. Everyone felt the shift in temperature. Min-jae stood slowly buttoning his suit jacket with the precision of a man who never rushed. Bring her to the East Wing, quietly. He hung up. The men around the table knew better than to ask questions. Min-jae walked out without explanation, his footsteps echoing in the marble hallway. His mind was already running scenarios. A distraction, a trap, blackmail, maybe all 3. But children, that was new, that was personal. And in his world, personal meant dangerous. The guards escorted her through a side entrance, away from prying eyes. She didn't resist, didn't ask where they were taking her, just held those babies close, whispering something to them that the guards couldn't hear. They led her to a private room. No windows, 1 door, a single chair in the center. She sat without being told. The babies stirred but didn't cry. That alone was strange. Infants always cried when strangers with guns surrounded their mother. Min-jae entered 5 minutes later. The door closed behind him with a heavy click. He studied her from across the room. Mid-20s, exhausted, malnourished, but her eyes were sharp, alert, not the eyes of someone broken, the eyes of someone who'd made a choice and was living with it. He walked closer, each step deliberate. She didn't look away. Most people couldn't hold his gaze for more than 3 seconds. She didn't blink. You have 30 seconds to explain why you're in my house. Her voice was steady despite the tremor in her hands. Because these are yours. She pulled back the blankets. 3 faces. 3 identical faces. Min-jae stopped moving. The world seemed to tilt slightly. He'd seen a lot in his life. Bodies, betrayal, blood. But this made his chest tighten in a way he didn't recognize. The babies looked up at him with dark eyes. His eyes, the same shade, the same intensity. Even the way they stared without blinking, like they were studying him the same way he studied everyone else. That's impossible. I know. I can't have children. Medical fact. I know that too. Min-jae's jaw tightened. Then you're either insane or someone sent you to die. She finally looked away, down at the babies in her arms. Maybe both, but it doesn't change what they are. He moved closer. close enough to see details, the shape of their faces, the small birthmark on the shoulder of the one in the middle. He knew that mark. He had the same one. His father had it, his grandfather. Every Choi firstborn for 5 generations. It only appeared once per generation, never more, never less. But here were three impossible children with his face and his family's curse etched into their skin. What's your name? Alara Quinn. Where are you from? Chicago, originally. Why are you in Seoul? She looked back up at him. Because someone told me if I didn't bring them to you, they'd take them from me, and I'd never see them again. Min-jae pulled out his phone, sent a text. Within seconds, his head of security entered with a tablet. Min-jae took it without looking away from Alara. Test them, all 3. I want DNA results in 2 hours. And test her too. I want to know everything. Medical history, travel records, financial transactions, everything. The guard nodded and left. Min-jae pulled up a chair, sat across from her, close enough that she could see the scar above his right eyebrow, close enough that he could see the exhaustion carved into every line of her face. Start from the beginning and don't lie. I'll know. Alara took a breath. 18 months ago, I woke up in a hospital in Los Angeles. I was pregnant. 20 weeks. I didn't remember the past month, just gone. Like someone had cut it out of my memory. Drugs? That's what I thought. But the tests came back clean. No drugs, no alcohol, no trauma. The doctors said it was dissociative amnesia, stress-induced. But I wasn't stressed before I lost time. I was fine. I was working 2 jobs, barely making rent, but I was fine. And the father? I don't know. I hadn't been with anyone in over a year. I didn't have time for dating, but suddenly I was pregnant. And the doctors said everything looked normal, healthy babies, plural. They told me I was having triplets. Min-jae leaned back. You didn't terminate? I thought about it. I couldn't afford 1 baby, let alone 3. But something stopped me. Every time I tried to make the appointment, I couldn't do it. Like something in my head was screaming at me to keep them. Someone manipulated you. I know that now, but back then I thought I was just being emotional, hormonal. I kept the pregnancy, worked until I couldn't anymore, gave birth alone in a county hospital, and then they started sending me things. What things? Letters, no return address, photos of me at the hospital, at my apartment, at the grocery store. They knew everywhere I went, and then the letters changed. They started talking about the babies, about their bloodline, about how they belonged to someone important, someone powerful. Min-jae's expression didn't change. And you believed them? I didn't know what to believe. But then they sent me a photo of you, with your name, your address, and a plane ticket to Seoul. The note said, give him what's his, or we'll take them back. So you came. What choice did I have? Stay in LA and wait for them to break into my apartment at night, run somewhere else and hope they don't find me again? I was barely surviving as it was. 3 babies, no support, no family. I couldn't protect them from whoever was watching us. One of the babies started to fuss. The little girl. Alara adjusted her hold, rocking gently. The baby settled immediately. Min-jae watched the interaction, studied the way Alara's hands moved with practiced precision despite the fear in her eyes. She'd been doing this alone, for months. That took a specific kind of strength, the kind most people didn't have. How did you get into Korea without proper documentation? The ticket came with a visa, temporary, 30 days. I used it. And you walked straight into my compound because I didn't know what else to do. I figured if you were really their father, you'd want to know. And if you weren't, at least I'd know I tried. Min-jae stood, walked to the far side of the room, pulled out his phone, and made a call. He spoke in rapid Korean. Alara caught maybe 3 words. None of them sounded friendly. He hung up and turned back to her. You're staying here until the tests come back. You'll be given a room, food, whatever the babies need. But you don't leave this building. You don't talk to anyone. You don't make any calls. Understood?" Alara nodded. "What happens after the tests?" "Depends on what they say." "And if they say you're the father?" Min Jae's eyes darkened. "Then someone has a lot of explaining to do." A female guard entered. Older, professional. She gestured for Alara to follow. Alara stood carefully, balancing all 3 babies the guard offered to help. Alara hesitated, then let her take one of the boys. They left together. The door closed. Min Jae was alone. He stood there in the empty room, staring at the chair where she'd been sitting. His mind was already dissecting every word, every detail, every possible angle. This wasn't random. Someone had orchestrated this. The question was why, and the answer would determine who lived and who didn't. 2 hours later, the results came back. Min Jae sat in his office staring at the screen. His head of security stood nearby, silent. The DNA report was conclusive. Paternity confirmed. 99.9% match. All 3 children were biologically his, but the method of conception? In vitro fertilization, unauthorized genetic extraction. The samples had been taken without his knowledge, modified, enhanced, then implanted into Alara Quinn without her consent. Min Jae scrolled through the additional findings. Enhanced cognitive markers, accelerated growth patterns, neural anomalies consistent with genetic editing. These weren't just his children, they were designer babies, built for something. He looked up at his head of security. "Find out who runs Genesis Protocol." "Sir? It's mentioned in the lab notes, Genesis Protocol. Find them. I want names, locations, financials, everything." The man nodded and left. Min Jae leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes. For 10 years, he'd lived with the knowledge that his bloodline ended with him. He'd built his empire on fear and control, because legacy through family wasn't an option. And now? Now someone had taken that choice away from him, created heirs without his permission, used a woman as an incubator, modified his children into something else, something controlled. This wasn't just an attack, it was a declaration of war. He opened his eyes, pulled up the security feed from Alara's room. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, all 3 babies laid out beside her. She wasn't sleeping, just watching them. Her hand rested on the smallest one's chest, feeling the rise and fall of each breath, like she was making sure they were still real, still hers. Min Jae felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest. Not quite sympathy, not quite anger. Something in between. Protectiveness, maybe. Or just the realization that his life had just become infinitely more complicated. He switched off the monitor, stood, poured himself a drink. Whiskey. Neat. He didn't usually drink during business hours, but today wasn't usual. He was about to take the first sip when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Then something told him to. He pressed the button, said nothing. A distorted voice came through, synthesized, untraceable. "Hello, Min Jae. I see you've met your children." Min Jae's grip on the glass tightened. "Who is this?" "Someone who's been investing in your future. You're welcome, by the way. We gave you something you thought you'd never have." "You stole from me." "We improved you. Those children aren't just yours. They're the next generation, smarter, faster, better. Everything you are amplified. We did you a favor." "And the girl?" "Collateral, a vessel. She served her purpose. You violated her. We gave her purpose too. She was nobody. Now she's the mother of the Choi heirs. That's more than she ever would have achieved on her own." Min Jae's voice dropped to a near whisper. "I'm going to find you." "We're counting on it, but here's the thing, Min Jae. Those children, they're not just yours. They belong to us too. We made them. We own the patents on the genetic modifications. Legally, they're our property. Nothing about this is legal. Legality is just a matter of perspective. We operate in spaces where laws don't reach. Just like you. So here's the deal. You keep the children, raise them, love them even. But when they turn 18, they come work for us. That's the price. And if I refuse, then we'll take them back now and you'll never see them again. Along with the girl. She's seen too much, knows too much. She's a liability, unless, of course, you agree to our terms. The line went dead. Min-jae stood there, phone still pressed to his ear, rage building like a slow-burning fire. He set the glass down carefully, too carefully, because if he wasn't careful, he'd throw it through the window. He needed to think, plan, move strategically. Emotion got people killed in his world. But this was different. This was personal, and personal changed everything. He left his office, walked through the compound. Guards stepped aside without needing orders. They could see it in his face. Something had shifted. He reached Alara's room, knocked once, waited. She opened the door, one baby cradled in her arms. The other two were asleep on the bed behind her. She looked at him, searching his expression for answers. The tests came back. They're mine. She exhaled, relief, fear, maybe both. What happens now? Now we figure out who did this, and we make sure they never do it again. They called you, didn't they? I saw your face. Someone called. Min-jae stepped into the room, closed the door behind him. They want the children when they turn 18, in exchange for letting us keep them now. Alara's eyes widened. No, absolutely not. I didn't come all this way just to hand them over to whoever did this. I'm not agreeing to anything, but they made it clear. If I don't cooperate, they'll take them by force, and you, along with them. Then what do? We find them first. We dismantle whatever operation they're running, and we make sure no one ever touches these children again. Alara studied him. Why do you care? You didn't even know they existed an hour ago. Because they're mine, and no one takes what's mine. They're not property. I know that, but in their eyes, that's exactly what we all are. Property, assets, tools. I've been playing this game long enough to know how people like this think. They don't see humans, they see investments, and the only way to beat them is to be willing to burn everything down. I don't want my children growing up in a war. They were born into one. We just didn't know it yet. Alara looked down at the baby in her arms. The little girl. Her eyes were open now, staring up at Min-jae with unsettling focus for someone so small. She does that sometimes. Stares like she's trying to figure you out. They all do, I noticed earlier. It's not normal, is it? The way they move together, react together. It's like they're connected. The tests showed neural anomalies, enhanced brain activity. They did something to them at the genetic level. What does that mean? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Min-jae turned to leave, then stopped. You're safe here, for now. But don't trust anyone outside this room, except me. My world is full of people who would use you and those babies without hesitation. Stay alert, stay quiet. And if anything feels wrong, you find me immediately. Understood? Alara nodded. Min-jae left. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Alara sank onto the bed, exhaustion crashing over her like a wave. She'd made it to Seoul, found Min-jae, delivered the truth, but somehow she felt less safe than she had on the streets of LA. Because now she wasn't just running from shadows. She was standing in the middle of a battlefield. And she had no idea how to protect her children from invisible enemies. Days blurred together. Min-jae's men worked around the clock, following every lead on Genesis protocol. They found shell companies, offshore accounts, labs in countries with no extradition treaties but no names, no faces. Whoever was running this operation knew how to stay hidden, and the deeper they dug, the more dangerous it became. Two of Min Jae's informants disappeared. Another turned up dead in the Han River. The message was clear: back off or more bodies would follow. But Min Jae didn't back off. He doubled down, called in favors from contacts in places most people didn't know existed: black market arms dealers, corrupt government officials, hackers who could crack into systems that shouldn't exist. Slowly, pieces started coming together. Genesis Protocol wasn't just one organization, it was a network, global, connected to pharmaceutical companies, military contractors, and private research institutions. They'd been running illegal genetic experiments for over a decade, creating enhanced humans, selling them to the highest bidder. And Min Jae, he wasn't their first target, just their most valuable. Alara spent most of her time in the room with the babies, but Min Jae visited every day. At first, it was just to check on them, ask questions, gather more information about her missing month. But gradually, the visits became longer. He'd sit in the chair across from her, watching her care for the triplets with a competence that shouldn't have been possible for someone so young and alone. She'd figured out their schedules, their preferences, which one needed more soothing, which one was more independent. She'd learned to read their moods before they even cried. One evening, he found her singing, a soft melody he didn't recognize. All three babies were quiet, eyes half closed, lulled by her voice. Min Jae stood in the doorway, not wanting to interrupt. She glanced up, saw him, but kept singing until the last note faded. The babies drifted to sleep. She carefully set them down in the cribs his men had brought in. Then she turned to him. "You don't have to keep checking on us. I'm not going anywhere." "I know, but they might come for you anyway." "You really think they'd attack you here, in your own compound?" "I think they've already proven they'll do whatever it takes. And you're the weak link. Not because you're weak, but because you're visible, traceable. If they can't take the babies by force, they'll try to manipulate you into giving them up. That won't work. You don't know what tactics they'll use. Fear, guilt, threats. They'll find your breaking point. Everyone has one." Alara crossed her arms. "What's yours?" Min Jae went quiet, looked at the sleeping babies. "I'm still figuring that out. You didn't want children, did you, before all this?" "It wasn't about wanting, it was about accepting reality. I couldn't have them. So I built a life that didn't require them. And now? Now everything's different." She moved closer, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. "You keep saying they're yours, but you haven't held them once, haven't even touched them except that first day. I don't know how. You run an empire, command armies, make men twice your size afraid, but you don't know how to hold a baby? Those are different skill sets." Alara picked up the little girl, the one who always stared the longest. She walked over to Min Jae, holding the baby out. "Try." Min Jae looked at the tiny human in her arms, so small, so fragile. He'd held guns with more confidence. "What if I drop her?" "You won't, just support her head, that's all." He reached out slowly, took the baby carefully. She was lighter than he expected, warm, her eyes opened, staring up at him with that same unsettling focus. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then the baby's tiny hand reached up, grabbed his finger, held on with surprising strength. Something in Min Jae's chest cracked. Just a little. Enough to let something unfamiliar seep through. Not quite love, not yet. But potential. The beginning of something that could become love, if he let it. "She likes you," Alara said softly. "How can you tell?" "She's not crying. That's her version of approval." Min Jae looked at Alara, really looked at her. Not as a problem to solve or a witness to protect, but as a person. Someone who'd been thrown into chaos and came out fighting. Someone who could have abandoned these babies but chose not to. Someone who walked into a Mafia compound alone because she believed it was the right thing to do. She was either the bravest person he'd ever met or the most reckless, maybe both. Why didn't you just give them up, put them in the system, walk away? Because they're mine. Whatever science created them, I carried them, birthed them, fed them. They're mine. Even if it meant coming here, facing me. Especially then, because you deserved to know, and they deserved a chance at something better than I could give them alone. You think I can give them better? I think you have resources I don't, power I don't, and despite everything, I think you actually care. Not because you're supposed to, but because you're choosing to. Min-jae looked back down at the baby. She was falling asleep again, still holding his finger. I don't know how to be a father. Neither do most fathers. They figure it out. Most fathers don't have enemies trying to kidnap their children. Then I guess you'll have to be better than most fathers. He carefully handed the baby back. Alara took her, settling her into the crib. Min-jae watched the way she moved, graceful despite exhaustion, gentle despite everything she'd been through. There was a strength in her that he recognized, the kind forged in fire, the kind that didn't break easily. He respected that, more than he'd respected anyone in years. I'm moving you to a different room, higher security, no windows, reinforced door, 2 guards posted outside at all times. Is that necessary? Yes. We intercepted chatter today. Someone's planning a move, soon. I don't know when or how, but I'm not taking chances. What kind of move? The kind that involves eliminating obstacles. Alara's face paled. Meaning me. Meaning anyone they see as expendable. Right now, that's you. The babies are too valuable. But you? You're just the delivery system. Once they have them, they don't need you anymore. So what do? You stay close. You stay alert. And you trust that I won't let them take you or those babies. Not without a fight. Why are you helping me? Really, it's not just about them being yours. Min-jae met her eyes, held her gaze. Because someone needs to. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. His expression hardened. I have to go. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me. Min-jae, just do it. He left. Alara locked the door, pressed her back against it, tried to steady her breathing. The babies slept peacefully, unaware of the danger circling them. She looked at them, these 3 impossible lives that depended on her and a man she barely knew, a man who killed people for a living, a man who was somehow the only thing standing between her children and whatever nightmare had created them. She didn't sleep that night, just sat in the chair, watching the door, listening for footsteps. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every sound made her heart race, but morning came without incident. Min-jae returned just after dawn. He looked like he hadn't slept either. There was blood on his shirt cuff. Not much, but enough to tell a story. What happened? We found one of their labs, outside Busan. We got there too late. They'd already cleared out, but they left something behind. He pulled out a flash drive, held it up. Security footage. From the night you were brought in, the night they impregnated you. Alara's blood ran cold. I don't want to see it. You need to, because it shows their faces, and faces give us leverage. I don't care about leverage. I don't want to relive that. I know, but if we're going to stop them, we need every advantage. And this is the first real evidence we have. Alara wrapped her arms around herself, closed her eyes, took a shaky breath. Okay, show me. Min-jae pulled out a laptop, connected the drive. The footage loaded, black and white, poor quality, but clear enough. Alara watched herself being wheeled into a sterile room, unconscious, strapped to a table. Doctors in masks moved around her. One of them spoke to the camera, male, middle-aged, American accent. Subject is prepared. Genetic material has been successfully modified. We're proceeding with implantation. Another voice. Female, younger. Viability, 93%, higher than previous trials. The Choi genetics are exceptionally compatible. And the memory suppression? Administered. She won't remember anything. Standard protocol. The procedure began. Ilara looked away. Min-jae paused the video. That's enough. You don't need to see the rest. Who are they? I don't know yet, but I'll find out. How? I have facial recognition software running on every database I can access, legal and otherwise. If they've ever been photographed, tagged, or recorded anywhere, I'll find them. And then what? Then I ask them questions, politely at first. And if they don't answer politely, then I stop being polite. Ilara looked at him, saw the cold determination in his eyes. She should have been afraid, should have been horrified, but she wasn't. Because for the first time since this nightmare began, someone was actually doing something, not just promising to help, not just offering empty reassurance, actually hunting down the people responsible. And if that required violence, so be it. They'd stolen her body, her choice, her memory. They deserved whatever came next. I want to help. You are helping by staying safe. That's not enough. I need to do something, anything. I can't just sit here waiting for answers. You're taking care of 3 infants. That's not nothing. It's not justice either. Min-jae closed the laptop, studied her. You want justice or revenge? Is there a difference? Justice follows rules. Revenge makes its own. Then I want revenge. Be careful what you wish for. Revenge has a price. I'm already paying it. I lost a month of my life, lost my autonomy, lost any chance at a normal future. What more can they take? Your soul, if you let anger consume you, you become like them, willing to hurt anyone to get what you want. Is that what happened to you? Min-jae went quiet. Yes. Do you regret it? Every day, but regret doesn't change the past. It just makes the present heavier. Then help me carry it. Teach me what I need to know. How to fight, how to protect them, how to survive in your world. You don't want to be part of my world. I'm already in it, whether I want to be or not. They made sure of that when they used me. So either I learn to survive, or I become a liability. And liabilities die. You said it yourself. Min-jae considered her words, saw the fire in her eyes, the determination. She wasn't asking for protection anymore. She was asking for weapons, tools, knowledge. That changed things, made her less of a victim and more of an ally. And he needed allies, especially ones with as much to lose as she did. All right, but we do this my way. You follow orders. You don't improvise. You don't take unnecessary risks. And if I tell you to run, you run. No arguments. Understood? Understood. Good. We start tomorrow. For now, get some rest. You look like you're about to collapse. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see that room, that table. Then don't close your eyes. Just lie down. Rest your body even if your mind won't shut off. He stood to leave. Ilara reached out, touched his arm. He stopped. Thank you for believing me, for not throwing me out. I didn't do it for you. I did it for them. I know, but still, thank you. Min-jae nodded once. Left. Ilara locked the door behind him, looked at the babies. They were stirring now, almost time for feeding. She picked up the first one, the boy who always smiled. He looked up at her with those dark eyes. Min-jae's eyes, and for just a moment she let herself imagine a different life. One where these babies weren't born from theft and violation. Where she and Min-jae had met under normal circumstances. Where they could raise these children in peace. But that life didn't exist, couldn't exist. So she pushed the thought away and focused on what was real. This room, these babies, this impossible situation, and the growing resolve that whoever did this would pay, one way or another. If you're hooked on this story and need to see what happens next, hit that subscribe button right now, because the next chapter, it gets darker, more dangerous, and someone's about to make a move that changes everything. Don't miss it. Weeks passed. Min Jae's network finally got a breakthrough, a name. Dr. Catherine Zhou, lead researcher at Genesis Protocol, bioengineer, former MIT professor. She'd published papers on genetic enhancement before disappearing from academia 5 years ago. Now they knew why. She hadn't left. She'd just gone underground, working on experiments that no ethics board would approve, creating enhanced humans for clients willing to pay millions. Min Jae called a meeting. His top lieutenants gathered in the war room, maps, photos, data streams projected on the walls. Alara was there too. He'd started including her in strategic discussions, not because she had experience, but because she had perspective. She saw things his men missed, asked questions they didn't think to ask, and she was learning fast. Too fast, maybe, but he needed smart people around him, and smart wasn't about experience. It was about adaptability. We found her, Min Jae said, pointing to a photo on the screen. Catherine Zhou, mid-40s, sharp features, cold eyes. She's in Singapore, running a private clinic under a false name. We have her location, her schedule, her security detail. One of his men spoke up. What's the play, extraction or elimination? Information first, elimination if necessary, but I want answers. How many others like my children exist? Who's funding this? Who's buying the results? Everything. And if she doesn't cooperate? She will, eventually. Everyone breaks. It's just a matter of finding the right pressure point. Alara looked at the photo. The woman who'd orchestrated her violation, who'd stolen genetic material from Min Jae, who'd created 3 children like they were products on an assembly line. She felt rage building, hot and sharp. I want to be there when you question her. The room went silent. Min Jae's men looked at him, waiting for his response. He studied Alara. Why? Because she needs to see what she did, not just data on a screen, not just a successful trial. She needs to look me in the eye and understand that I'm a person, that those babies are people, not experiments. That won't make her feel guilty. People like her don't work that way. Maybe not, but it'll make me feel better. And right now, I need that. Min Jae considered, nodded. Fine, but you stay in the background. You don't speak unless I tell you to. You don't interfere, you observe. That's all. Agreed. They left for Singapore that night. Private jet, no records, no trail. Min Jae's men moved like ghosts. Alara sat across from him during the flight, staring out the window at the darkness below. Have you done this before? Interrogated someone? Many times. Does it get easier? No, it gets more efficient, but not easier. How do you live with it, the things you've done? By remembering why I did them. Context doesn't erase guilt, but it makes it bearable. What if context isn't enough? Then you learn to carry the weight, or it buries you. Alara looked at him. Do you think I can do this? Really? Do what? Live in your world. Be hard enough to survive it. Cold enough to make the choices you make. You're already doing it. You walked into my compound knowing I could have killed you. You stayed despite the danger. You're on a plane to Singapore to confront the woman who violated you. You're stronger than you think. Or more reckless. Sometimes they're the same thing. They landed just after midnight. A car was waiting. No questions asked. No paperwork. Just keys and an address. They drove through Singapore's gleaming streets. So clean, so orderly, such a stark contrast to the darkness of what they were about to do. The clinic was in an upscale district. disguised as a cosmetic surgery center, expensive, exclusive, the kind of place where people paid for perfection and didn't ask questions about methods. Min Jae's team disabled the security system. 6 minutes, in and out. They moved through the building like smoke, silent, invisible. Catherine Zhou was in her office, late night, reviewing files. She didn't hear them enter, didn't notice until Min Jae was standing right behind her. She turned, saw him. Her face went white. "Hello, doctor. We need to talk." She reached for something under her desk, panic button probably, but Min Jae was faster. He grabbed her wrist, applied just enough pressure to make it hurt. "Don't. You press that button and this conversation ends badly for everyone." "Who are you?" "Someone whose life you decided to manipulate. Ring any bells?" Recognition flickered in her eyes. Fear followed. "Choi Min Jae, the Triplets." "So you remember. Good. That saves time." His men secured the room, checked for secondary alarms, found none. Alara stepped out of the shadows. Catherine's eyes widened. "Subject 47, you're alive, and here." Alara's voice was ice. "My name is Alara, not a number, not a subject, a person." "Of course, I apologize. Old habits." "Old habits?" Alara stepped closer. "You stole a month of my life, violated my body, impregnated me without consent, and you call it a habit?" "It was science, progress. You were compensated." "I was never asked." "Sometimes the greater good requires difficult choices." Min Jae pulled up a chair, sat down, gestured for Catherine to sit across from him. She did, reluctantly. "Let's skip the philosophy. I want names. Who funded Genesis Protocol? Who ordered my genetic material stolen? Who's buying the enhanced children?" "I can't tell you that. Client confidentiality." "This isn't a medical practice. It's a black market operation. There's no confidentiality, only leverage. If I talk, they'll kill me. If you don't talk, I will. So you're dead either way. Question is whether you die with honor or fear." Catherine's composure cracked. "Just a little. You don't understand what you're dealing with. These people, they're not just criminals. They're governments, corporations, military. They have resources you can't imagine." "Try me." She looked at Alara, then back at Min Jae. "The Triplets weren't the first. We've been running trials for 8 years, 47 attempts. Most failed. Genetic rejection, miscarriages, stillbirths, but a few succeeded. Your children are the most successful, healthiest, strongest. The modifications took better than any previous trial." "What modifications?" "Enhanced neural pathways, increased cognitive processing, improved physical resilience. They'll be smarter, faster, stronger than baseline humans. By the time they're adults, they'll function at levels most people can't reach, even with training." "You made them into weapons." "We made them into the next evolution, humanity's upgrade. Without asking humanity if they wanted to be upgraded." "Progress doesn't wait for permission." Min Jae leaned forward. "Who funded this? Names?" Catherine hesitated. Min Jae's patience was a thin wire. He pulled out a knife, set it on the desk between them. Didn't threaten, didn't need to. The implication was clear. She looked at the knife, then at him. "The consortium, that's what they call themselves. 14 members, CEOs, politicians, military leaders. They pool resources to fund projects governments can't officially touch." "Names?" "I don't know all of them. They use code names, numbers, but I know 3. Senator Richard Holloway, American, Defense Committee. He wanted enhanced soldiers. Dr. Liu Chen, Chinese, genetics researcher. He wanted data. And Marcus Delacroix, French, private military contractor. He wanted to create super soldiers for hire. Where are the other children? The successful trials? Scattered. Different families, different countries. We used surrogates. Paid them well to stay silent. Your situation was unique. We needed a surrogate who wouldn't be traced back to the consortium, someone expendable, someone who'd take the babies and disappear. Alara's fists clenched. You chose me because I was poor, alone, invisible. We chose you because you fit the profile, low risk, high return. I wasn't a person to you, I was a variable. You were both. Science doesn't negate humanity, it just prioritizes differently. Min-jae stood. You're coming with us. I need proof, documentation, everything you have on the consortium. They'll find out, they'll kill me, kill you, kill everyone involved. Then we'll die fighting, better than living as someone's experiment. Catherine looked at the knife, at Min-jae, at Alara. She was calculating odds, survival chances, escape routes, but there were none. She was trapped, so she nodded. I'll get you the files, everything, but you need to protect me. If they find out, if the information checks out, you'll have protection. If it doesn't, you won't need protection. You'll need a funeral. Catherine stood, walked to a safe hidden behind a painting, opened it, pulled out hard drives, folders, USB sticks, handed them to Min-jae. This is everything, research notes, client files, financial records. If this gets out, the consortium collapses. Good, but you need to understand, they won't just kill you. They'll kill everyone you love, everyone who helped you. They'll burn your empire to the ground. They can try. They left the clinic. Catherine came with them, sedated, secured. Min-jae wasn't taking chances. On the plane back to Seoul, Alara sat alone, staring at the files. Names, photos, data, lives ruined for profit, children created like products. She felt numb. The anger was still there, but now it was colder, more focused. She looked at Min-jae. What happens now? We expose them, leak the data, let the world see what they've done. And if the world doesn't care, then we make sure the people who do care have the weapons to fight back. You mean us? Yes. We're just 2 people, 3 babies. How do we fight governments and corporations? The same way we got here, 1 step at a time, 1 target at a time. What if we lose? Then we lose knowing we tried. That's more than most people can say. Alara looked at the sleeping babies in the bassinet beside her. They had no idea what world they'd been born into, no idea what battles waited ahead, but she'd make sure they survived, no matter what it cost. She owed them that. They hadn't asked to be created, hadn't asked to be weapons, but they were here now, and they deserved a chance, real one. Not one dictated by labs and conspiracies, but one where they could choose their own path. I'm with you, she said quietly. Whatever it takes. Min-jae nodded. Then rest, because once we land, the real war begins. Back in Seoul, Min-jae's compound became a fortress. Extra guards, surveillance upgrades, weaponry, stockpiles. He was preparing for siege, because he knew it was coming. The consortium wouldn't let this slide. They had too much invested, too much at risk, and Min-jae had just declared war on all of them. He spent nights in his office combing through the data Catherine provided. Names became targets, addresses became missions. He started small, a shell company in Taiwan, a research facility in Ukraine, a financial broker in London, each one connected to the consortium, each one taken down with precision. His message was clear. You took from me, now I take from you. But the consortium responded. Assassins appeared. 3 attempts in 2 weeks. Min-jae survived all of them. Barely. His men weren't as lucky. He lost 4 good soldiers, men who'd been with him for years. Their deaths weighed on him, but he couldn't stop. Stopping meant surrender, and surrender meant losing everything. Alara trained during the day, hand-to-hand combat, weapons handling, tactical thinking. Min-jae's head of security taught her. A woman named Ji-woo, former military, brutal, efficient. She didn't go easy on Alara, didn't coddle her, just pushed until Alara's body screamed and her mind went blank with exhaustion. But Alara kept going because she had to. Her children's lives depended on her being more than a victim. They needed her to be a fighter. One night, Min-jae found her in the training room. 2 in the morning. She was hitting a punching bag. Over and over. Her knuckles were bloody. She didn't stop. He walked over, caught the bag mid-swing. Enough. I'm not done. Yes, you are. You're hurting yourself. I need to be stronger. You're strong enough. What you need is rest. I can't rest. Every time I close my eyes, I see them coming for my babies, taking them, and I can't stop them. I'm not fast enough, not strong enough. That's fear talking, not reality. Fear keeps you alive. Fear keeps you paranoid. There's a difference. He grabbed her hands, examined the damage. Come on, let's get these cleaned up. She followed him to his office. He had a first aid kit, always prepared. He cleaned her knuckles carefully, applied antiseptic. She winced but didn't pull away. Why do you care? About me, I mean, not just the babies, me. Because you're not just a surrogate, you're their mother, and they need you whole, not broken. I'm already broken. No, you're cracked. There's a difference. Broken can't be fixed. Cracked just needs the right glue. And what's the glue? Purpose. You have it. You just need to trust it. He finished bandaging her hands, looked up, their eyes met. Something passed between them, unspoken, complicated. Alara felt it, a pull, not quite attraction, not quite trust, something in between, dangerous territory. She pulled her hands away. I should go, check on the babies. Alara, she stopped, turned back. What? You're doing better than you think. Don't doubt that. She nodded, left. Min-jae sat there in the silence, staring at his hands. They'd touched hers, felt the warmth, the pulse beneath the skin, human connection. He'd avoided it for years. Easier that way, less complicated. But now it was unavoidable. She was in his life, in his home, raising his children. And somewhere along the way, she'd become more than just a responsibility. She'd become someone he actually cared about. That was a problem because caring meant vulnerability, and vulnerability got people killed. But he couldn't stop it, couldn't turn it off. So he did what he always did, buried it, focused on the mission, stayed cold, stayed sharp. Emotions later, survival first. 3 months after Singapore, the consortium made their move. Not with assassins, with lawyers. They filed a lawsuit, claimed the triplets were intellectual property, created using their patented technology, therefore legally theirs. It was absurd, insane, but backed by enough money and power to be taken seriously. Courts in 4 countries issued injunctions. Min-jae's assets were frozen, his businesses scrutinized, his movements tracked. He called an emergency meeting. They're trying to suffocate us legally, cut off resources, force us into a position where we have to negotiate. Can they win? One of his lieutenants asked. In a fair court? No. But these aren't fair courts. They're bought, rigged. We need a different approach. What approach? Public pressure. We leak everything. The data, the experiments, the names. Let the world see what they've done. Force them to fight in the open where they can't hide. That's nuclear. We do that, they'll come at us with everything. They're already coming at us with everything. At least this way we're not fighting alone. Alara stepped forward. I'll go public, tell my story, show the babies, put faces to the victims, make it personal. That makes you a target. I'm already a target. At least this way, I'm a target people care about. Min-jae wanted to argue, wanted to keep her safe, hidden, but she was right. Personal stories moved people. Data didn't. If they wanted public support, they needed a face, a voice, someone who could make the world care. And Alara, she was perfect for that role. Sympathetic, genuine, impossible to ignore. All right, we'll set up interviews, major outlets, international reach, but we control the narrative. We script it carefully, no improvisation, no emotional outbursts, clean, professional, human. I can do that. I know you can. But once you do, there's no going back. Your life becomes public property, every decision scrutinized, every word analyzed. Are you ready for that? I'm ready for whatever keeps my children safe. The interviews went viral. Alara's story spread across every platform, news, social media, podcasts. People were horrified, outraged, demanded investigations. Governments scrambled to respond. Some denied involvement, others launched inquiries. The consortium tried to discredit her, called her a liar, a con artist. But the data Catherine provided backed every claim. DNA records, financial transactions, video evidence. It was undeniable. Public opinion turned. Protests erupted outside consortium-linked companies. Shareholders panicked. Stock prices tanked. Politicians who'd taken consortium money faced calls to resign. The empire the consortium had built in shadows was crumbling in daylight. But cornered animals were the most dangerous. And the consortium. They were backed into a corner with no way out except through. They sent a message, delivered to Min Jae's compound by courier. Inside the envelope, a single photo. Alara and the triplets, taken yesterday outside the compound during one of her rare walks. The message was clear: we can reach you anytime, anywhere. Min Jae's rage was cold, controlled, lethal. He increased security, doubled patrols, installed new surveillance, but he knew it wouldn't be enough. If they wanted to get to Alara and the babies, they'd find a way. Resources, planning, patience. That's all it took, and they had plenty of all three. He found Alara in the garden. She was sitting on a bench, holding all three babies. They were bigger now, almost 6 months old, developing personalities. The girl was bold, always reaching for things, testing boundaries. The boys were calmer. One was analytical, watched everything. The other was emotional, cried easily but laughed just as fast. They were becoming people, not just infants, people. We need to move you. Alara looked up. Where? Somewhere they can't find you. Off the grid, remote. For how long? Until this is over. And when will it be over? When one side wins, or both sides destroy each other. I don't want to run. I'm tired of running. This isn't running, it's strategy. You're the most visible target. If they eliminate you, the public sympathy dies. The movement falls apart. They win. So I'm bait. Your leverage. And I won't let them use you. Alara stood, held the babies close. What about you? If I leave, you're alone. I've been alone before. Not like this. Not with this much at stake. I can handle it. I know you can, but you shouldn't have to. She stepped closer, close enough that he could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the fear she tried to hide, the determination underneath. We're in this together. You said so yourself. So we stay together. Face it together. That's reckless. Maybe, but it's also right. Min Jae wanted to argue, wanted to force her to safety, but he saw the resolve in her face. She wasn't asking for permission. She was stating a fact. They were partners now, equal stakes, equal risks. He couldn't protect her if she refused to be protected, so he did the only thing he could. He accepted it. Fine, but you follow security protocols. No exceptions. Agreed. And if I tell you to take the babies and run, you do it. No arguments. Only if you're right behind us. Alara, no, I mean it. We leave together or not at all. He studied her face, saw something there he hadn't noticed before. Not just determination, not just fear, something else, something deeper. She cared about him, not just as the father of her children, not just as protection, but as a person, someone worth saving. That realization hit him harder than any bullet ever had. All right, together. She smiled, small, tired, but real. Together, that night the consortium made their final move. Not with soldiers, not with lawyers, with fire. They burned 3 of Min Jae's businesses simultaneously. Warehouses full of inventory, offices full of records, legitimate fronts that kept his empire running. The message was clear. We're destroying everything you've built, piece by piece. Min Jae watched the news footage, flames consuming years of work, millions in losses. His men looked to him for orders, waiting for rage, waiting for retaliation. But he didn't give them rage. He gave them something colder, a plan. We're done reacting. From now on we attack every consortium member, every business, every asset. We hit them everywhere at once. Overwhelm their defenses, force them to spread resources thin. Then we cut off the head. Who's the head? Senator Holloway. He's the most public, the most vulnerable. We expose him completely, every crime, every connection, every dirty deal. We make him toxic, force the others to distance themselves, divide and conquer. And if that doesn't work, then we do what we do best. We eliminate the problem. His men nodded. They knew what that meant. Blood, violence, war. But they were ready. They'd been ready since this started. Now they finally had permission to unleash. This is where everything changes. The final war is about to begin. If you want to see how Min Jae takes down the consortium, how Alara protects her children, and whether they all survive what's coming next, you need to subscribe right now, because part 2 drops next week, and trust me, you don't want to miss what happens when a mafia boss decides to burn the world down to save his family. The attacks began at dawn. Coordinated, simultaneous, brutal. Min Jae's network moved like a machine. Senator Holloway's offshore accounts drained, his secret properties exposed, his communications leaked, every corrupt deal, every bribe, every dirty secret released to the press in a flood that couldn't be contained. Within hours, Holloway was trending worldwide, not as a politician, as a criminal. His colleagues abandoned him. His allies went silent. Even his family distanced themselves. He was radioactive, toxic, finished. And the consortium, they were scrambling, because if Holloway could fall that fast, so could they. Dr. Liu Chen disappeared, fled China for parts unknown. Smart move. Min Jae's people were hunting him, but he'd gone underground deep enough to buy time. Marcus Delacroix wasn't as smart. He tried to fight back, sent mercenaries after Min Jae's operations, but mercenaries were just hired guns. No loyalty, no investment. Min Jae's men had both. The mercenaries lasted 3 days before retreating. Delacroix went into hiding after that, but hiding only worked if no one was looking, and everyone was looking now. Back at the compound, Alara watched the news with grim satisfaction. The empire that had stolen her life was crumbling, but she didn't feel relief, just exhaustion, because she knew this wasn't over. The consortium still had resources, still had reach. They'd regroup, adapt, come back harder. This was a wound, not a kill shot. The babies were restless that night, all 3 of them, crying in turns. Nothing soothed them, not feeding, not rocking, not singing. It was like they sensed something, a disturbance in the air. Animals felt earthquakes before they hit. Maybe genetically enhanced children felt danger the same way. Alara held them close, whispering reassurances. She didn't believe herself. Min Jae entered without knocking. He looked haggard. Lines of stress carved into his face. We have a problem. What now? Catherine Zhou is dead. Found in her safe house. Single gunshot. Professional. Alara's heart sank. They killed her. They killed the witness, the person who could testify. Now all we have is data, and data can be disputed, called fabricated. Without her, the legal case gets significantly harder. So what do? We find another witness, someone else in the consortium, someone willing to talk. Who? I'm working on it, but until then, we need to be ready for their next move, because they just proved they can reach people in witness protection. That means nowhere is safe. Then we make our own safe place, somewhere off their radar. Where? Alara thought, remembered something from her past, before the babies, before Seoul. I have a cousin, lives in rural Montana, middle of nowhere, no internet, no cell service, he's off-grid, survivalist type, doesn't trust governments or corporations. If anyone can hide us, it's him. Can you trust him? With my life. He raised me after my parents died, taught me everything I know about surviving. If I call him, he'll help, no questions asked. Then call him. She did. That night, on a secure line. Her cousin's voice was gravel and smoke. Alara, where the hell have you been? I've been seeing you on the news. It's complicated. I need help. I need a place to hide, for me and 3 babies. Silence. Then, how much danger? Lethal. How long? I don't know. Weeks, maybe months. Another pause. Bring 'em. I'll be ready. He hung up. No hesitation, no negotiation, just immediate acceptance. That was family. That was trust. Alara looked at Minjai. He's in. Then we leave tomorrow before dawn, no trail. What about you? I stay, finish this. Alone? I won't be alone. I have my men. That's not what I meant. Minjai stepped closer, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried. I know what you meant, but I can't leave. Not now, not when we're this close. The consortium is wounded. If I push now, I can finish them. But if I run, they regroup, and next time, they won't miss. What if they kill you? Then you raise the babies. Tell them who their father was, what he fought for. Make sure they know they were wanted, loved, even if I couldn't say it. Alara's eyes burned. You can say it now. Minjai hesitated. Words weren't his strength. Action was, but she was right. If he died tomorrow, he'd regret not saying this. I care about them, about you, more than I thought possible. You walked into my life as a problem, but you became something else, something I didn't expect. What? Family. The word hung in the air, heavy, significant. Alara reached up, touched his face. He didn't pull away. Then don't die, because we need you, not just for protection, for everything else, the messy, complicated, impossible everything. I'll try. Promise me. I can't promise that. Then promise you'll fight like hell to come back. That I can promise. She pulled him into a hug. He stiffened at first, then relaxed, let himself feel it. Human warmth, connection, things he'd denied himself for too long. They stood there in the dim light, holding on to each other while the world burned outside. It wasn't romantic, it was survival. 2 people refusing to let darkness win. The next morning, Alara and the babies left before sunrise. Private car, no escort, just a driver Minjai trusted with his life. They drove for hours, out of Seoul, out of South Korea, into Russia, then a plane to Alaska, then a truck into Montana. The journey took 2 days. By the time they reached her cousin's property, Alara was exhausted, but safe. Finally, safe. Her cousin Marcus was exactly as she remembered, tall, bearded, eyes like a hawk. He took one look at the babies and nodded. They're yours. Yes. All 3? Yes. Who's the father? Complicated. Dangerous complicated or illegal complicated? Both. Marcus grunted, led them inside. The cabin was small but fortified. Solar panels, water filtration, enough supplies to last months. He'd been preparing for societal collapse for years. Turns out he'd been preparing for this too. You're safe here. No one knows this place exists. I built it myself. No permits, no records. As far as the government knows, this land is empty. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You're here because someone wants you dead. That means I'm now involved. So here's the deal. You follow my rules. You don't leave the property. You don't contact anyone without my permission. You train with me every day. Learn to defend yourself properly, because if they find you, I might not be enough. Understood. Good. Get settled. We start training at dawn. Back in Seoul, Min-jae was orchestrating chaos. He'd leaked internal consortium communications, emails discussing experiments, funding illegal operations, bribing officials. The evidence was damning. Governments were forced to respond. Investigations launched, assets seized, arrests made. The consortium was collapsing from within. Members turned on each other, blame shifting, finger pointing, exactly what Min-jae wanted. But one member stayed silent, the one who mattered most, the architect, the person who'd started Genesis Protocol, who'd designed the entire operation. No one knew their identity, not even Catherine Zhou. They were a ghost, a shadow, the real power behind everything. And Min-jae needed to find them, because killing foot soldiers didn't win wars. Killing generals did. He spent weeks following digital breadcrumbs, following money trails, hacking encrypted servers, bribing informants. Slowly, a picture emerged. The architect wasn't a scientist, wasn't a politician, was a billionaire tech mogul, someone everyone knew, someone beyond suspicion. And that made them the most dangerous of all. The name hit Min-jae like a train. David Park, Korean-American, Silicon Valley legend, philanthropist, humanitarian. He'd built an empire on clean energy and medical technology, donated billions to charity, was beloved globally, and underneath all that, a man obsessed with evolution, with pushing humanity forward by any means necessary, including illegal genetic experimentation. Min-jae called a meeting with his remaining inner circle. We've been hitting the branches, time to cut down the tree. David Park, he's the architect. He's been funding everything through shell companies and charitable foundations, all hidden, all clean. But I found the connections. Park? The David Park? The guy who's on the cover of Time magazine every other month? The same. How do we take him down? He's untouchable, too rich, too connected, too public. No one's untouchable, we just need the right leverage. What leverage? His daughter, she's estranged, has been for years. I found interviews. She's been trying to expose him for the same things we are. Genetic experiments, unethical trials. But no one believed her. They thought she was bitter, resentful, but she was telling the truth. So we contact her. We ally with her. Give her the evidence she needs. Let her be the face of the takedown. A daughter exposing her father's crimes. That's a story the media can't ignore. They found Sophia Park in Vancouver, living under a different name, working as a nurse. She'd walked away from billions to escape her father's shadow. Min-jae approached her carefully. No threats, no manipulation, just truth. Your father created genetic experiments, enhanced children. Mine are 3 of them. I want him stopped. I think you do too. Sophia looked at the evidence, photos, documents, DNA records. Her hands shook. I knew he was doing something, but I didn't know it was this bad. Help me stop him. If I do this, he'll destroy me. He has the resources, the lawyers, the power. He'll try. But this time, you won't be alone. This time, the world is watching, and I'll make sure he can't touch you. Sophia considered, looked at the photos of the triplets, 3 innocent faces caught in a nightmare. She thought of all the other children her father had created, used, discarded. Her voice hardened. What do you need me to do? Go public, tell your story, connect it to mine, make him answer for what he's done. When? Now? The press conference was global. Sophia Park standing beside Min-jae, both of them flanked by lawyers and security. She spoke first, calm, clear, devastating. She detailed years of suspicious activity, labs her father kept secret, budgets that didn't add up, conversations she'd overheard. Then Min-jae presented the evidence, the files Catherine Jo had provided, financial records linking Park to Genesis Protocol, communications discussing the triplets, the genetic modifications, everything. The world watched, and the world was horrified. David Park tried to deny it, called his daughter a liar, called Min-jae a criminal trying to deflect from his own crimes. But the evidence was too strong, too detailed, too undeniable. Governments launched investigations. Shareholders demanded answers. Protests erupted outside Park's corporate headquarters. Within a week, David Park was arrested, charged with human trafficking, genetic modification without consent, conspiracy. The list went on. His empire crumbled faster than he could contain it. Assets frozen, businesses seized, legacy destroyed. The architect had fallen, and with him, Genesis Protocol died. But Min-jae didn't celebrate, because he knew the cost, the lives lost, the trauma inflicted, the children who'd never know normal. Victory didn't erase damage, it just made it survivable. He sat in his office staring at a photo of the triplets Alara had sent. They were smiling, growing, thriving despite everything. That had to be enough. That had to matter. His phone rang. Alara, he answered. It's done. Park is arrested. The consortium is finished. Alara's voice cracked with relief. Really? It's over? As over as it can be. There might be stragglers, people trying to restart. But the organization is dead. The funding is gone. You're safe. When can we come home? Soon. I need to clean up a few loose ends. Make sure there are no surprises waiting. But soon. I miss Seoul. I miss you. Min-jae closed his eyes. I miss you too. The babies ask about you, well, not in words, but they look at your photo. They know you're supposed to be here. Tell them I'll be there soon. Tell them their father is coming home. I will, Min-jae. Yes? Thank you for everything, for believing me, for fighting, for giving us a chance. You gave me a chance too. I was just surviving before. Now I have a reason to actually live. They talked for another hour. About nothing. About everything. About the future they might actually have now. When they finally hung up, Min-jae felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Fragile. Uncertain. But real. 3 weeks later, Alara and the babies returned to Seoul. The compound had been renovated, more secure, but also warmer, less fortress, more home. Min-jae was waiting at the entrance. He looked different, lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. The babies saw him first. All three reached out simultaneously. He took one in each arm. The third was held by Alara. They stood there, a strange, makeshift family born from chaos and trauma, but a family nonetheless. Welcome home, Min-jae said quietly. Alara smiled, tears in her eyes. We're home. Life didn't become easy. Trauma didn't disappear overnight. The triplets still had moments where they'd react strangely, move in sync, seem to communicate without words, reminders that they weren't entirely normal, that they'd been changed. But they were also just children, learning to walk, to talk, to laugh. They fought over toys, cried when tired, smiled when happy. The modifications didn't define them. Their choices would. And Min-jae and Alara were determined to give them the freedom to make those choices. To be people, not weapons. Not experiments, just people. Min-jae stepped back from the darker parts of his empire, delegated more, focused on legitimate businesses. He couldn't erase his past, but he could shape his future. The triplets needed stability, a father who came home at night, who read them stories, who showed them that strength didn't always mean violence. That power could also mean protection. Alara went back to school, online classes, psychology degree. She wanted to understand what had been done to her, to help others who'd been violated the same way, turn trauma into purpose, pain into progress. It wasn't easy. Some days she couldn't concentrate, couldn't sleep, couldn't function, but she kept going because her children were watching, and she needed them to see that survival was possible, that healing was possible, that you could be broken and still become whole again. One night, after the babies were asleep, Ilara and Minjae sat on the balcony, city lights stretched below them, Seoul humming with life. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Everything that happened." "Regret what?" "Meeting me, the babies, all of this." Minjae was quiet for a long time. "I regret that you were hurt, that you didn't have a choice. But do I regret them? Regret you? No. Never. Even though it nearly destroyed everything you built? I built an empire on fear and control. It was always going to be destroyed eventually. At least this way, something good came from the ashes. You think we're good? I think you're the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I spent most of my life believing I didn't deserve good things. So yeah, you're good." Ilara leaned against him, felt his warmth, his solid presence. "What happens now? Now we live, raise our children, watch them grow, hope they're better than we were. Think they will be? They have you as a mother. They don't have a choice." She laughed, quiet, genuine. Minjae wrapped an arm around her, held her close. They sat there in the quiet. Two people who'd been thrown together by circumstance, who'd survived hell, who'd somehow found something worth keeping. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was messy and complicated and imperfect, but it was theirs, and that was enough. Inside, the triplets slept peacefully, unaware of the battles fought for them, unaware of the sacrifices made. But they'd learn someday. Their parents would make sure of it, not to burden them, but to remind them that they were wanted, fought for, loved fiercely by two people who refused to let the world define what family should look like. The night stretched on. Seoul never truly slept, always moving, always evolving, just like them, just like everyone trying to survive in a world that didn't make survival easy. But they were surviving, and some days that was victory enough. But this isn't the end, because 3 months later something started happening to the triplets, something the doctors never predicted, something that proves Genesis Protocol didn't die with David Park. It evolved. And now Minjae and Ilara face their biggest challenge yet, protecting children who might be more dangerous than anyone realizes. If you want the next chapter, subscribe now. Because what comes next, you won't believe it until you see it. And trust me, you need to see it.